Hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this TeamLease Industry Dialogue, where we'll have the opportunity to exchange ideas, insights, and experiences related to one particular sector. This dialogue is a great opportunity for us to sort of come together, share our knowledge, and collaborate to find innovative solutions to the challenges that we all face. And over the course of the last several years now, we've been inviting industry experts who, over the course of their incredible experience, have come across various situations that commonly are faced in the industry and have been able to solve for them. And hopefully this has been of some use to the people who are watching this. And in that series today, I'm really happy to introduce you all to Mr. Shashidhar Vilgi, Business Director, South Asia at Diversity India. With over 20 years of experience, he has held national and regional P&L roles across sales, trade marketing, and key segments like general trade, modern trade, HoReCa, institutional sales, and food service. He has worked with diverse product categories, including F&B, as part of which confectionery, alcohol, staples, ready-to-cook, etc., construction chemicals, and home and personal care as well. Beyond business, he is also actively involved in CSR initiatives, expanding NGO partnerships, and also mentoring young professionals on career development and life skills. So, Shashi, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Bala, for the introduction, and thank you for having me. Looking forward.
Most welcome. It's our pleasure, truly. So just to give an introduction to the people who are watching this, the FMCG market has been having a bit of a tough time in the last 5-6 quarters because of lagging volume growth. Same store growth has not been all that great. Primarily growth has been driven by rural India, of course, which has been far outpacing the growth in urban India, higher disposable incomes, etc. Variety of reasons are there for it. One particular reason is inflation, of course, but then companies are adopting innovative strategies to deliver growth, nevertheless, by pricing expansions, tinkering with grammage, expanding the network of distribution by venturing into new markets, and also expanding into adjacent categories, right? So when volume growth doesn't kick in, then you have to really depend on all of these other vectors. Now, however, over the next few quarters or so, recovery does seem to be on the horizon, and we are overall looking to continue our impressive march in terms of growth year on year, which we have been seeing over the last few years, well into the future as well. Whatever growth has been happening now has also been catalyzed by the growth of e-commerce and more recently quick commerce as well. Apart from this, there is technology, especially generative AI. It's caused industry disruption and will likely automate or augment nearly 2/3 of everything that we do. That's what one particular research says. There are other researchers that say the figure will be even more. So AI-driven innovative L&D strategies in the FMCG industry are improving employee satisfaction by nearly 20% and helping organizations to address challenges such as high attrition, skill gaps, and also low employee engagement that the industry typically faces. The breakneck digitalization in the FMCG industry, which we have actually seen, firsthand post-COVID particularly, has been changing the way employees behave. It's been changing consumer behavior as well, particularly, and the rise of hybrid work models. Now, these have necessitated rethinking learning and development to efficiently upskill employees, foster agility, attract talent in a better way, address global market challenges, and ultimately to stay competitive. So again, having said this, we are excited to host today's event. And the topic for today is upskilling the workforce in the FMCG industry for a digital-driven future. Yeah. So as part of this, the first question to you, Shashi, is, of course, as we all know, FMCG industry is witnessing a rapid evolution, right? So it's driven by factors like digital transformation, of course, especially post-COVID, sustainability, and the rise of e-commerce. From your perspective, what are the most significant changes which are shaping the sector today, and how are businesses adapting to stay competitive?
Thanks for the question, Bala. So you're right. Digital transformation, sustainability, and e-commerce have been shaping business, the way we do business in FMCG for a long period of time now. And the only change that we see every day is the fact that the way businesses operate, the way they talk to a customer, the way they handle product categories has been changing practically not every year, but every quarter now, right? Just to put things in context, even if you're not a large FMCG company, but you have a good idea, good product, a developing brand, the entry barriers have right now kind of disappeared. And what I mean by that is, let's say skincare, you have a good product, you have a good backing, right? And you have a good idea on to be sold. It's not necessary that you go to the regular channels of modern trade, general trade. Uh, there are brands which are doing a fantastic job in D2C, for example, right?
Yeah.
And digital democracy is all pervasive, right? Everybody has access to some kind of a technology here and there. And there are avenues where people pick up these technologies and make it their own, right? So let's talk about the e-commerce part. Famously, a lot of large FMCG companies now say that 8 to 10% of the business comes from e-commerce. The fact of the matter is that while they are looking at e-commerce with that kind of a clarity, they are also looking at other channels which are developing fast, right? So quick commerce is a subset of e-commerce, but it's developing much faster, right? I don't remember, for example, when was the last time I visited a supermarket, right? To be honest, to buy essentials. But what it triggers in the FMCG space is somebody in the category team, somebody in the marketing team, somebody in the sales team has to be cognizant of what is selling, how it is selling, what are the competitors doing in the e-commerce space, but also in the also in the quick commerce space. So availability, supply chain constraints, all these are factors which have to be taken into account. Sustainability, as you mentioned, is a global trend. We see it more in certain sectors, right? For food packaging, etc. You will see a lot of movement happening there. People are becoming health conscious, so they're asking for packaging which is good for them, but it's also sustainable for the environment, right? The demands are very high. Customers want something which is fresh. Customers want something which is eco-friendly. Customers want something which really suits their health palette, right? And while it's a challenge, the good part of the news for FMCG companies is consumers are ready to pay a premium for it, right? So there are n number of brands out there in the market today who just put a healthy tag, who just put a fortified with XXX tag and command a premium, right? So there is an opportunity. Which brand, how much does it take care of the consumer? How does it really cater to the customer's requirements is something that needs to be seen. And when you talk about digital transformation, let me just share an anecdote with you. This was in 2011, the early days of the digital transformation in the FMCG space. WhatsApp was also not available, right? Those were the days when we were area managers and we used to grapple with sales data. I used to have a sales director of a large FMCG company who would do all his reviews on his iPhone, right? So digital transformation, as we know today, as we knew 5 years back, as we knew 2 quarters back, is not going to remain the same, right? So every quarter, every 6 months, we see some kind of a change that is coming in, right? And this only tells us as FMCG companies, as people who are leading these businesses, that it's not only the fact that you need to be well versed with what you know, but you also need to have an eye open and say, hey, what else is happening in this space? Is there something that I'm missing, right? You only know what you know. If you don't know that X is brewing somewhere else, so you need to be cognizant of what is happening out there in the market, speaking to industry experts. I hear a lot of my colleagues saying innovation was a part of marketing earlier because product innovation used to be key. Now, innovation is not only about products, it's also about processes, it's also about digitalization, it's also about getting more customers into the foray. For example, personalized marketing, right? It's happening, right? Every birthday, every anniversary, every occasion, you get a message from a FMCG company. For example, the hair oil that I use, I've stopped using a hardcore FMCG product. I use a product which I buy online from a D2C brand. And whenever I buy it, they send me a coupon, they send me literature, but they also make sure that on important personal uh, celebrations, they also send me a special coupon for your birthday, for your anniversary. So I think from that perspective, digital transformation, sustainability, e-commerce are all evolving the business in a particular way. But the real name of the game is the fact that these parameters are changing in, day out, week in, week out, rather than one large change happening over a quarter and then remaining stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you mentioned some gems over there. Like, for example, digitalization has been democratized now, and it's the entry barriers have actually come crashing down because of that. Because if you have a product, you don't really have to worry about how do I hire a sales team now? How do I tie up with distributors? How do I sell to this big supermarket chain and so on and so forth? Even if you do not have a D2C setup, there are D2C enablers like plug and play. You could do that. Or you could just directly sell on quick commerce. That's it. Pay them some money to promote your product so that you are up top with the search results, and that's it. You can get it running. So, and the same thing applies to all these cloud kitchens, right? If earlier you wanted to sell food, right? You have to set up a restaurant, you have to spend money in marketing that particular restaurant. But now, you could just be a cloud kitchen and sell directly on these, food aggregator platforms. That's it. So I think selling and marketing have completely evolved. As you rightly said, it's not just about product innovation. It could be the same kind of products, but the way it is being sold or marketed has also completely been innovated the hell out of in the last few years, tremendously. That is
Yeah.
that. And
I mean, just to add to that, since you mentioned a plug and play model for distribution, that it's a live case, it's an opportunity for even companies who never considered it to be their forte, right? If if they have the product, if they have the price, if they know something to do with the promotion, then the place or I'm coming from an age where Kotler used to mention 4 Ps, not 7 or 8 or 15, whatever it is. But the place where you want to sell your product was paramount, and now that barrier has crashed. So you have a good idea, good product, good pricing, your product can reach even the smallest of towns or the farthest of towns.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's become so easy for so many players to come in. And as you said, that's also one of the reasons why a lot of these established large FMCG companies are acquiring these smaller D2C companies, right? Because they have established products which are getting repeat customers. They are struggling because in D2C, fundamentally, the margins aren't really attractive until you reach a certain scale. But then if you marry that with an FMCG company's established network, the incremental cost of adding the product to their existing supply chain is nothing.
Sorry.
They just put that product down the supply chain and it gets sold. So really interesting times for sure, no question about it. And also the other point that you mentioned also resonated with me. People have become extremely health conscious, right? Even my 10-year-old son picks up a packet of biscuit and says it has added sugar. I want to buy a biscuit that says no added sugar. Think about that. 10-year-old, right? I had no idea what that meant, but I was 10 or maybe even 15 for sure. Yeah. And many of these traditional companies which are into food and beverage have also come up with these products with a health angle to them, you know. So, no, of course. So in this situation where, as you said rightly, the operative term is how fast are things changing rather than are things changing or not. In this, what is the role of workforce in FMCG in the future as you see it? What are the specific skills and competencies do you see as essential in this evolving landscape, Shashi? That's something I'm really keen on understanding from.
Yeah, good question again. For me, I will answer this question probably in 3 parts. For me, anybody who comes and says that the workforce will disappear, there'll be lesser people working in the market, it will all get digitized. I mean, we heard similar stories when modern trade came to India. And while modern trade has grown the way it has flourished across, but general trade still exists, right? The mom and pop store exists. So if mom and pop store exist, even if they get completely digitized, you will still find a salesman from a company going there and speaking about. So I think in the Indian context, the human connect is essential. During COVID times, you heard a lot of FMCG companies asking their salespeople to work from home, speaking to people. That was the form of humanization of the sales process at that point of time. But now it's much more open. The market is out there to be captured, right? So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is you or rather the companies will now or rather are working on making sure that salespeople are equipped with the right set of skills and knowledge, right? So a new SKU is launched, a new product is launched. It doesn't take more than maybe half a minute for that information to be passed on to their teams uh, through the power of social media, through the power of chat groups. It disseminates very, very fast, right? So the speed to the market has actually come down. I remember when I was launching a food product 6, 7 years back, when we were given the task, we were given a task of reaching X number of retailers in about 3 months. If I were to present the same idea today, my boss would surely have a laugh at my expense. So that's not happening. So the propensity of a company to launch a product and educate their own sales force is very, very high, right? The third part is, once you reach the customer, once you reach the retailer, once you reach the wholesaler, what is the wow factor that you create, right? A retailer or a wholesaler probably meets 15 or 20 salesmen in a day or a week, right? How does he or she remember who was that one salesperson who created a wow factor in that week? Of course, there will be people who will give you extra discounts. Maybe you're happy with that, but they will remember somebody who created a wow factor. So let me give you a very pertinent example. Now, I work for a company called Diversity Solinus. I had a business called Prosumer. We go to the length and breadth of India in terms of wholesale coverage. And every time we ask a salesman, a DSR as we call it, to go to the wholesaler and speak, we also request them to show them a video, either of a product or an application, or one of their customers speaking about the product or speaking about how a product has made a difference in their lives, right? That always creates a as one wholesaler told me, I really look forward to meeting a DSR. It's like, why? He says, there are 10 salesmen who come, they speak about Bollywood, they speak about politics, they speak about cricket. But yours is one who speaks all this, but also shows me something which is innovative. It might be a wholesaler who's right down the street, who's being for whom we have made a video and he talks about the products, right? So in all, when you look at all these capabilities, right, digital training programs, extremely critical, right? As an organization, I think most of the FMCG companies are really clued into what is the kind of digital learning programs, that initiatives that have to be taken, right? To educate every right to the person on the on the ground, right? And there are some skills which have become extremely non-negotiable, right? Social media, for example. So an example, somebody was telling me the other day, I met a fellow from an FMCG industry. He's difficult for the sales force to adopt to social media skills. So they ran a small contest. They said you do either of three things. You either sing a song or dance to your favorite song, or you play your favorite sport and just make a video out of it. And they got some 100 entries, and they said, if you can make this, you can definitely make a customer testimonial, right? If you can really do it for Instagram with your family in a wedding, you can do it for the business. The myth that a salesperson is only a salesperson is being broken. A salesperson is also a marketing person. He also shares videos which are viral, which are about the product, which are about the business, to ensure that the retailer or the wholesaler also understands of what is happening in the market, right? And a lot of time, money, and energy is being spent on the three parameters which is essential for every salesperson, which is the knowledge, the skill, and the attitude, right? So when I speak to my HR partner, it's all about attitude. How do we shape it? How do we make them more resilient? How do we make them more determined, right? But when it comes to knowledge, it's about what works, what does not work. But it's also skill. And at the end of it, if you train all of them in all of this in a closed room and then send them back, it's quite possible that 80% of the training is lost. So it's important that when they reach where they reach, they know what is being spoken, and enforcement is something is required.
Got it. These kind of initiatives now, rural markets have been outpacing urban for almost a year now. I believe the first time it happened was in Q4 last year. And this year, Q3 also looks to be that's how it's going to be, right? So it's a full year, right? And hopefully in the next, I don't know, 3-4 years or so, rural could be neck and neck with urban at 50-50. I think right now it's in the range of 35 to 40%, whereas urban is in the range of about 60-65% maybe. There are some lead indicators for that, Shashi, if you see. In tier 2 cities, apparently, 5G data consumption per capita is now higher than in metros. Yeah, by a factor of 20-25%. Because a lot of them consume OTT on their phones. They may not really have internet connection at home with their TV. Their TVs may not be smart TVs. They may not have a smart TV at all in the first place, right? So a lot of consumption is happening there. And secondly, they have relatively more time on their hands as well. So with that, digital discovery of products and services is also happening at a viral pace. And who knows, if, let's say, e-commerce, big commerce companies are able to expand their networks in a big way, then more consumption could happen in rural, and that could simply act as a force multiplier. In such rural markets, the same kind of things that you spoke about with respect to upskilling, ensuring that a certain level of productivity is there, etc. How do you ensure those things happen? Because naturally there is a geographical challenge. For example, in a city, a person can do a beat of 35-40 stores in a day within a radius of, let's say, 4-5 kilometers max, right? But in a rural market, it's sort of inverted, right? So you'll have to travel maybe 50 to 100 kilometers to even cover, let's say, 15-20 stores. So there is a challenge with respect to coverage per day, which means productivity goes per task. Your volume of sales per store would also be lower compared to urban markets. So there are multiple challenges. So in that sense, how do you really ensure that your people are up to the task and they're able to be productive, and how do you skill them for it in rural markets?
Okay, when I look at sales numbers, or when I look at numbers threadbare, right, I believe India is in a golden phase right now where our GDP is growing fast and it's at the threshold of growing faster. Of course, the urban economies will grow, but the rural economies will also see a huge shift in terms of consumption, right? As disposable income increases. So I'm not too concerned about, let's say, am I growing by 25% in terms of per store sale? I'm more concerned in terms of, is my salesman spending enough, what we call as CFT, customer facing time, in front of a retailer or a wholesaler in terms of doing the actual coverage? Because it's one thing to say that I've covered 30 outlets, but if you've done a postman call of 30 seconds each, you're done pretty much within a couple of hours. So I'm going to set aside the question on the productivity part. But in terms of learning, I think my experience says that it has to be hybrid. Okay. So what we do at Diversity Services in tier 1 markets, or not tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 markets, or in some rural markets that we operate, while we do the education online, while we do the training parts in terms of doing it on WhatsApp, doing it on mails, doing it on videos, doing it on LinkedIn videos, we also make sure that they are in the in a classroom, maybe once in a quarter, where apart from the hardcore training that they're supposed to go through, they also share their victories and challenges, right? What I've seen is that people initially they don't open up, but when one person speaks, or when they hear somebody speaking a similar story to what they have achieved or what they have challenged, they have faced as a challenge, they start speaking up, and then the learning becomes even more better, right? But with classroom training, with online training, I think the biggest important thing is reinforcement, right? So either you schedule it and say, once every week you're supposed to undergo training, once every quarter you're supposed to go training. But what is also important for me is, like, for example, when we did a special drive here in Diversity Services, of course, there were people who won incentives, etc. But one key learning for me was the moment they heard somebody from their own group speak about it, ideas started flowing in. So I went to Hyderabad, visit the market, met a star DSR who had overachieved his targets. And all I did after meeting his customers was made him stand under a tree, speak about what he had done, and that was shared. And that virality of that particular video actually helped a lot of people gain those ideas, which were right there in front of them, just that they did not see it from that lens, right? In FMCG space, I think also the fact that some of these sales force, some of these salespeople would not be probably, you know, cognizant of what is happening in omnichannel, right? Like a D2C or a quick commerce. It might not really matter to them, but as are clued into making their lives better and their careers better. I'm sure somebody who works in the rural market might want to become a territory manager in a tier 1 city, might want to become an ASM. He or she needs to be aware of what is the ground on which they want to appear preparing themselves for, right?
Yeah.
It should not take them by surprise. So we make it a point that, and companies are making it a point that they expose people on the ground to channels even which they are not exposed to right now, so that they are aware, right? And as just about 5 minutes back when you were mentioning about the plug and play model, it's going to be a fact of life. There are going to be multiple channels in every region of India. So that's very, very critical. And as I mentioned, with social media becoming very, very easy to use, if I may say so, I think companies are also investing a bit of training and money to train their sales folks in actually reaching there in terms of digital marketing proficiency. You might not know social, you might not know SEO, you might not know what are Google words, Google ads, but you actually know just by putting a video online of your product, how many followers see it, who sees it, how many customers see it. Oh, and then questions keep coming on. Can you send me this? Can you send me that? So that's something that they need to be aware of, right?
Yeah.
So, and one very critical thing is how you communicate all this. Is it you have to do this? You better do this? You need to do this? Or you say, hey, you know what? If you do this, we are preparing you for the future. So if you want to become a territory manager, if you want to become a sales manager, if you want to become an area manager, whatever that is, these are skills that you need to know.
Yeah.
Right. And therefore, I keep saying to every salesperson that is there on the ground in my team, you are not a sales guy. You are a sales and a marketing guy.
Yeah.
You should know how to market what you're doing. You should know how to market your products. You should know how to market your customers as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think well said, Shashi. At least you are thinking of giving a growth path to these people, because the single biggest challenge that at least I hear from people is that, let me give you the scenario. I won't take any more of your time. This is probably the last question I wanted to speak with you. See, salaries for graduates, engineering graduates, right, from some of the top engineering colleges in the country, maybe not the IITs or NITs, but or maybe the top government, run universities at a state level, but the ones just below that, right, which will be in the top 10 within that state. Sure. But even there, salaries have remained the same for the last 15 years. I'm sure you would have noticed it's hovering around the same 25K to 30K mark max. That's it. Yeah. it's really disheartening to see that. But you know what? Somebody from that institute would sooner join an IT company, night shift job for 25K, rather than join, an FMCG company or a consumer durables company, for example, as a store promoter or a field salesperson, etc., where he could potentially earn more. And the reason they say that is twofold, right? One is they feel that sales is a job that it's blue collar / gray collar. It's not white collar, right? So there is a social stigma associated with sales in India.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas sales is a highly respectable position in developed economies, by the way. Strangely, sales is among the highest paying professions worldwide. But in India, there is definitely a negative stigma associated with that. It's one. Secondly, which is a very important point, Shashi, is they feel it's a dead end job. Join as a sales guy and die as a sales guy.
Yeah.
Right? What are your thoughts on this, and how do you think at scale this problem can be addressed? Because this is a big question.
Yeah, so you took me back to 2007 when I became an area manager in Chennai. And my biggest problem was not IT companies or promoters or salesmen becoming promoters in modern trade. My biggest issue was National Highway Authority of India picking up people working on the ground saying, hey, I'll give you 800 rupees instead of 400. Work on the golden quadrilateral. We are building a road from, we'll pick you up, we'll drop you, we'll give you lunch, everything. So the challenges have been from various sectors across every point. But you know what? I firmly believe, uh, and we do this every day here at Diversity Solinus, where we give every salesperson who has spent at least 18 months in our company a career path. And we don't do this by giving them lofty messages by saying, we don't wrangle a carrot. We say, this is what it is. This is how the business is growing in your area or the state. And you know what? We don't guarantee them a next job or a permanent job. But what we say is you become eligible for this particular role or the next role in this much time. Right?
Yeah.
So talent mapping is something that we do internally. And we communicate this very, very clearly to people. Obviously, we don't touch anybody who spent less than 18 months because they need to stabilize themselves. But one thing that we clearly do is when we see a spark in that person and we realize that this person can be actually a future leader for us, we spend time not only in helping them sell more or helping them gain, more business, but also in developing them, in developing their knowledge, skill, and attitude as well, right? So we expose them to training programs. We have people on board from HR, from our training teams who spend time with them. As of today, close to about 15% of my sales force who's permanent with the company has been picked from the third party. And each one of them for us becomes a champion for the cause. What we call as they become the lighthouse for us. Because when they speak the same language that everybody understands. So, for example, my line manager, who's the vice president of operations today, says 26 years back, I was a territory manager. 27 years back. Today, I'm the vice president. If I can grow, why can't you? As simple as that. Right? So, showing them the path, being with them, treat them as humans, give them very clear roles, give them very clear challenges, give them very clear rewards and recognition, and I'm sure the people will grow.
Yeah. No, once again, very well said, Shashi, because this is something that's not really been addressed by most companies, unfortunately, because I think especially post-COVID, there is this social contract between employer and employees that's completely broken off as well, right? There is more of this mercenary mentality that is there. Yeah. I have this requirement, I'll get people, I'll throw the warm bodies in, I'll get the job done. If I need them, I'll keep them. If not, I'll sack them. That's it. And you know what? Employees are also looking at it that way. This gig economy, yeah.
And that adds fuel to the fire of the sales tag that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Sales is not, I can spend a day talking to you about how people treat sales. But the fact of the matter is that sales is also the revenue generation for the organization.
Yeah.
So it's imperative that you hold on to the team as much as possible, work with them, and give them the right path. That's very critical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, see, it's ironical that now post-COVID, with so much digitalization, so many LMS tools are available in the market. YouTube is the biggest LMS tool. Upload your videos on YouTube, share it with them.
I'm the biggest advocate of, I ask everybody the same question. I ask, do you have 169 rupees that you can spend in a month on yourself? And everybody looks at me and says, why are you asking me that? I said, you just subscribe to YouTube Premium. Wherever you are, you're traveling, obviously you're not driving, but you're traveling, you're sitting, waiting for a customer. Go through a English speaking course or a digital marketing course in 5 minutes at 1.5x the speed, download it, whatever. I do it myself. So why not?
Correct. Totally, absolutely. With all that being available, companies are increasingly focusing less on actually upskilling people, right? I mean, since we are in this space, I can tell you this, Shashi. The requirement from some of these companies is, laughable to say the least. They want people coming in at minimum wages, but they should have, 2 to 5 years of experience, right? he would already be earning more than minimum wages. So why would he join you for lesser? That's one.
Yeah.
And secondly, they want that person to have sold exactly that category, not FMCG, that category, right? If it is F&B, great. Within F&B, it has to have been alcohol, for example, or it has to have been, let's say, aerated beverages and so on and so forth. I can't manufacture the guy out of thin air for you, and even if I do, that person will not be willing to work at minimum wages. So the point is, hiring people is not like checking boxes, right? I want this, and this. I don't care how. So that kind of mercenary mentality is definitely there, and it's surprising that a lot of seasoned, FMCG professionals are still thinking like this, which is, I don't know. I find it very strange, honestly.
I'm sure. I'm sure the times are changing. Just by ticking boxes, you're not guaranteed of the right resource. That's for sure. And I strongly believe that I've been fortunate to work with companies where that's not been the thought process.
Right.
And again, not blowing our own trumpet, but we have a sales force of over 180 people right now on the ground. And as we speak today, I had a conversation with my direct reports to figure out who are the next people that we should be bringing on board and keeping them ready. So I call them the India and the India A team, right?
Mm.
So my India A team cannot ever have vacancies. So if they have vacancies, it's a sign of trouble for me.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it, and the pipeline can never be dry.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you on that. It's always good to have a happy headache, which is a problem of plenty,
Yeah,
rather than not having enough people, right? For example, even in the Indian cricket team, if there are three people who can be the wicketkeeper, it's a great problem to have, no, rather than not having anyone. So
yeah, absolutely.
no, it's great to hear these thoughts from you, Shashi. But unfortunately, you seem to be among the minority here who are actually thinking of being able to give a career to people and not just a job. Today, that thought process has seeped into the first problem that I mentioned, wherein people look at sales as a job and not as a career, because it's because of the hiring managers who treat it that way. You know.
Yeah, and I think it also stems from the fact that somewhere people are assured of quantity but not quality.
Yes.
India is a land of employment opportunity,
Yeah.
and because of various reasons, there are people still in the market who consider it to be a 3-month experiment before taking it full time. So yeah, that's something that we are grappling with every day.
All right, great. Well, that's all I had. But thank you so very much once again, Shashi, for coming on board and sharing your thoughts with us. I'm sure it was incredibly useful for a lot of people who are watching it, especially because I think you were very candid and you stuck to the basics, right? Which are obvious, but then not so obvious as well, because as they say, it's the uncommon common sense, right? Take
Absolutely.
care of your people. But most people don't seem to be doing that. So once again, thanks so much for your time. Yeah.
Thank you for having me, and all the best to you and your team. And yeah, you said it. Uncommon common sense is the most critical part. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Shashi.